So I started that business with $100 and I sold it for $20 million 4 years later. I sold it because I thought I needed a couple of strong men and a big corporate to take my business from 20 million to 100 million. That was the biggest mistake I've ever made in my life.
Hi everyone, I'm Paul Waddy. Welcome to another Wayflyer Founders Series. I'm a strategic advisor for Wayflyer and an e-commerce consultant. And I'm the author of Shopify for Dummies and Selling Online for Dummies. And today I'm joined by the founder of Sam's Drinks, Irene. Welcome to the Wayflyer Founders Series.
Thank you, Paul. Lovely to meet you. What awesome books as well.
Yeah, I don't think you'll need them, but thank you nonetheless.
I wish they were around a decade ago when I first started in e-commerce.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, me too. That's pretty much why I did it, because we were sort of all floundering around trying to make it worse. That's trying to make it work, not worse. That's a good segue into. I always like to ask people in this kind of, you're in the e-com space, you're in the drink space, but you often find it's a pretty new industry, both of the fields you're operating in there. So there's generally a backstory. So I'm always interested in, what did you do before you were doing this?
Before I had this business, I had started another e-commerce business that was incredibly successful. I was basically the first e-commerce platform to offer a superstore selling only natural and organic toxin-free products. And back in 2012, when I started that business, it was such a new industry that 90% of the comments that I received on my social media pages back in 2012 were, why would anyone buy a natural product? Are you a hippie? What do you mean? What do you mean there's microplastics in my scrub?
Yeah.
You are such a scammer pretending that they kill fish in the ocean. How dare you make up those claims just to sell your natural product? And so even something as simple as a reusable coffee cup was really, really new to the market back then. And actually, interestingly enough, there's an interview of me on Channel 9 on the morning show back in 2013, and they say to me, so you're a mum with four that decided to only use natural products on their children. Where on earth do you find non-toxic products these days? And so that's like how crazy it was. And so look how far we've come. So anyway, that was great. And then I sold that business after 4 years. So I started that business with $100 and I sold it for $20 million 4 years later. And that was how awesome e-commerce was back then, and social media. You put $1 on Facebook back then, you got $100 back. And off I was with my $100, and I didn't need any investors or any bank loans or anything back then.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I sold the company to a big ASX listed business back in 2017-ish. And I sold it because I actually did a TikTok video recently because there's a lot of stuff in the paper at the moment around the business that I'd sold it to, because they'd acquired some other business. They acquired Go-To Skincare and some other companies since then. And there's lots of chatter about how they're performing in the market, which I won't go into here, but you can Google that. I sold it because I thought I needed a couple of strong men and a big corporate to take my business from 20 million to 100 million. And that's why I sold it. And that was the biggest mistake I've ever made in my life. And there's nothing I can do about it now. Yeah. So I worked for those people and watched them run my company whilst being in the company. And that was pretty painful. That was hard, yeah. And so I ended up leaving the business and starting over again. I left the company, and then I had turned to alcohol actually as a crutch to cope with whatever was going on this from not owning my business anymore. And I really missed
Yeah.
being a business owner so much. I missed it so much. I missed the where is my order, and the complaint and just everything, the usual running business, like little things like that. I missed. And not that I get a lot of those, but like as an entrepreneur having an e-commerce business, people do ask what their order is. I miss that. And I left, and then I thought, what will I do with myself now that I've left? And so I had two choices. I could either take the $20 million and buy a yacht and go cruise around the Riviera or whatever, or France, and live it up, or I
Sounds
could,
good.
yeah, it sounded like one option, but it wasn't an option that I really wanted to do. I thought it was my other option. My other option was I'll just start another business and start again, so that way people can ask me where their orders are, and I could create brands and businesses and create product and sell product and do what I love doing, create jobs, run a warehouse, just do all that sort of stuff. And so I didn't know what to do. I knew I wanted to start a new company, and I wasn't allowed to do anything in the beauty space or the natural product space or the toxin-free space. So that really left a lot of options off the table, actually. It really only left clothing, like apparel, left,
Yeah.
and like cars. Excuse me, I'm not sure. It wasn't really much to sell once you lock out health. And, one night over a bottle of vodka, I thought, we went into lockdown at that point, and I thought, this isn't good, really, is it? I've got to stop drinking, because if I keep drinking, then I'm going to get COVID, because my immune system is going to get slammed. And I thought, well, what can I drink instead? And so I went into a bottle shop, and this is a long-winded story. I hope it's not boring anyone. I went into a bottle shop, and I said,
It's a good one. Yeah.
and I said, do you have any alcohol-free drinks like that taste like alcohol but without alcohol in it?
Yeah.
And this is in 2020. In lockdown, bottle shops were still open, and they said, like, looked at me like I was nuts. And you know what's really crazy about being a serial entrepreneur? You recognize the looks. And it was the same
Yeah.
damn look I got when I went into Priceline asking for a natural deodorant in
Yeah.
2012. And they were like, what do you mean a natural deodorant? What do you mean a deodorant without aluminium? What are you talking about? Where's your tinfoil hat?
Yeah.
And so I felt like I needed to put my tinfoil hat on and walk out. I thought, there's a bloody business idea right there, isn't it? Selling products that taste like alcohol that don't have alcohol in them. And I did a lot of research, and you know what? They existed. Now, at the time, the wires had kind of just launched, but really what was out there for a while was non-alcoholic wines. And beer. They've been out there for years. But couldn't get them anywhere. You had to kind of get them online, and then they were like the website. They were a bit daggy. Although imagine if I could make this cool, like I made natural beauty products cool and start a revolution again, right? Imagine that. So I thought, well, that would be more fun than sailing away into the sunset, wouldn't it? And so I thought, I won't do a custom build website again, actually, because that's problematic. And I remember having my custom build website at Nourish Life, and it just was such a pain because nothing worked with it. So I thought, I'm going to go into Shopify Plus this time. I'm going to go straight to the top, go Shopify Plus, and then did that. I didn't know about your books. I had to learn how to use Shopify, and gosh, it's a great platform. So I set that up, and then I just started from scratch. I thought, I'll put $1 on Facebook. I'll buy some non-alcoholic wine wholesale, and off I go. And what I learned was oh my God, it's so much harder now. You don't put $1 on Facebook anymore and get $100 back or $10 back.
Yeah.
It's different. It costs a lot more money to cut through, and so I invested, money. Obviously, I had money. I invested that into the business. And I thought, I didn't want to spend all my money on this, and so, I started the company. It did really well. It took off. I grew really quickly. I needed more money to invest. I put a little bit more money in, and then I decided that I wanted to launch my own products because I felt that's where the real growth was in this space because there wasn't a lot of great product. And so I launched my own products. And to do that, I needed a lot more money because I buy all this product up front. And that's where I found Wayflyer. And that's why I stumbled across them to use them because I needed a lot of money quickly so I could scale really fast. And here I am.
There's so much gold in that, and I'm just sitting here listening because, there's a couple of points there that stand out to me. And thinking about who will be listening to this, there's probably people who are running successful e-commerce businesses. There's probably people who are new to e-commerce, but a couple of things there for me. Irene, you and I have been around for a while, and in those days, you absolutely could put $1 into Facebook, and it was like a vending machine. You could pretty much sell anything. You could pull money out. Those days,
you could write your own check. I literally bought a house
you could.
For what I made just on 1 year, just on Facebook.
You could write your own check. Now, the thing is, those days are gone, but some people don't think they are, and they're absolutely doing their cash in paid media. But what stands out for me, and this is a lesson for people listening who are new to the business, is that it starts with the product. And you twice now have had that aha moment where you've had daft looks when you've asked for certain products, and you've very clearly said, oh, there's something that can be done here. And for me, the successful businesses that I see, it always starts with the product. And if you can answer the question in a sentence, what problem is my product solving, then you're in for a good run. And a lot of people don't. A lot of people just grab any old product and decide that they want to pump a bit of money into paid media. You've really honed in on two very early niches, which ultimately you're an early adopter. So sometimes the early stages can be tough, but then everybody else catches up and you enjoy the benefits. There's another thing there that I think is important, and your branding, I think, appears to be strong. So you would I be right in saying that you have a particular flair for creative or social and brand and that sort of thing? Because you do manage to make non-alcoholic drinks look pretty fun.
Yeah, I think that the trick there is that I'm not trying to do anything branding, and I actually am just being myself, and I'm a little bit daggy, and a little bit, I'm a 70s child, right? And so, I like the bright colors and those sorts of things. So I don't know, a lot of people don't like my branding, but it's just me. And I think if you're true to yourself, it's very easy to stay on brand because it's just you. And it's just me pretty much in the pictures, talking about
I'm browsing the Instagram feed, and that's what I like about it. It's not super polished, but that's what gets cut through. People want to know, people buy from people, and I like the fact that you're in the feed, you're talking, it's fun, and it's raw. And for me, that gets cut through into your community, which is great. Irene, tell us about your business model at Sandstrings. Are you omni-channel? Are you pure play online? How does it work?
Okay, so first, excuse me, I had to come inside because I'd run out of batteries. So it's a slight change of scenery here. My business model is actually super interesting. I am not pure play online, actually. I have a non-alcoholic bottle shop, bricks and mortar store in Sydney, and I am about to move that store. Here's a scoop because I haven't told anybody yet. So here's a scoop. I just did a deal with Westfield, actually, so I'm going to be in the malls now. So I'm moving.
Amazing.
Yeah, thanks. So my new store launches in Warringah Mall in the food and beverage precinct, and that the doors open on the 1st of March to that. So I'm working on the fit out and the build now with the team, and that's been super interesting. So the concept there is that it's a seamless experience for when you go into the online store and you can read 8,000 reviews against, thousands of products, and you can make some decisions based on what other people are saying about the product. But when you walk into my store, you can actually taste anything you want on shelf. Cool. And I think that's what's really great and what's interesting about a new category, because people are curious about what they taste like. Yeah. And so we'll have a beautiful tasting bar and everything, all free. in the new premises as well, so you can try everything. So it's definitely omni-channel. And then I also, here's another scoop as well. A couple of months ago, I actually acquired my competitor as well.
Oh,
yeah. So I only had one competitor online, and they launched before me, and they did an excellent job, and they were very, very good. They were really good, and they were a huge threat to me. In fact, one of the reasons I'd opened up the original bottle shop was to try and get one up on my competitor, because we were like head to head.
wow.
And they were very, very strong in beer, or they are very, very strong in beer. They're called Craft Zero, and they're a bloody amazing business, pure play ecom. And they have 90% men, and they predominantly sell they're pretty much the go-to place for non-alcoholic beer.
Okay.
And my business, Sans Drinks, was predominantly 90% women, and very strong in wine and spirits.
Okay.
And so the great thing about acquiring that business is access now to all of these amazing non-alcoholic craft beer brands. And also there will be an amazing like beer cave in my stores as well as I roll them out. So I can keep the men happy as well as women happy, because my Nourished Life experience really is only about women and health, So it's been interesting understanding the male customer this time. So that's really my business model. So I've got the two, I've got the two brands, the two websites. I've got the bricks and mortar rollout. I was going to franchise. I went through the entire franchise situation, went to all the money, all the auditing. I went through everything, put out the prospectus and everything for the franchising. And then I had this amazing opportunity come up where I could just own them all. And I figured, well, I'll just do that instead.
Yeah.
And then the third part of my business is the brands. And so there are a whole bunch of brands that I own, like things like Ms. Sands and Sands Bar, which are brands that I own. And the great thing about those brands is I refuse to sell them to the stores, the majors. And so I'm selling those brands to my customers at wholesale prices. And that's why they're so significantly cheaper than other things on the market, because it's basically manufacturer to direct to the consumer with no middle people in between. And that's really how I managed to stay in business against people like Dan Murphy's and Woolworths and Coles, who thought that, oh, what Irene's doing over there looks very interesting. Let's try and quickly add all of that to our shelves and see if we can put her out of business. But the reality is that people don't want to buy non-alcoholic drinks from bottle shops, number one. And number two, just like any major retail, they got a whole bunch of crap in there, some of it's probably fine. But, when you want to have really good stuff, you really do need to go to a specialty store. I mean, you don't go to the butcher to buy bread.
Great point. I think that's really good, knowing your market, and congratulations and we got 2 scoops out of you, so I'm very happy about that. What I also wanted to touch on, given it's a Wayflyer founder series, and Wayflyer is all about e-commerce funding for anybody who might not be aware. You've had an interesting perspective, Irene, and this is something that we've talked about with other founders. Some businesses look at different ways to finance their business. Private equity being one of those, and there's a real culture in Australia of celebrating private equity deals and not really celebrating bootstrappers. Don't know why that is. It's sort of like, congratulations, you've raised X amount.
$5 million. You know what? I would prefer to pick my eyeballs out with the ice pick right before I took 1 cent from an investor that wanted a percentage of my business. Yeah. How is that braggable? Oh, I raised $2 million. So you raised,
exactly.
You scabbed $2 million off people, and now they own $2 million of your business. So what's so good about, why are we celebrating that?
Yeah, that's exactly right. I'm always puzzled. And then sometimes the people that are chipping away and bootstrapping and profitable and generating cash don't get celebrated. And I'm not sure really why that is, but I've always got a soft spot for the retailers who get in there and back themselves and believe in themselves.
What's interesting about that, though, sorry to cut you off, but what's interesting about what you said about they're not celebrated. We're not celebrated. It's really interesting because the people that do not go out and try and get money off other people, we actually don't care if we're celebrated or not. We don't enter awards. We're not all showy. It's not about, oh, I won this award and I've got all this. We don't care. We don't really on LinkedIn bragging about stuff. We're kind of just in the trenches, keeping our customers happy, finding where those orders are.
Good point. There's quite a few retailers that I work with who are very dark horses who would be pocketing way more than some of these sexy publicly listed companies each year, and there's a lot more than people realise. So that's where my sort of soft spot comes from. Now, just on that again, so I guess you've had the perspective of a lot of experience in business, a lot of experience with finance and funding. If someone was listening to this thinking about, taking on private equity or maybe going to one of the big banks or then having a look at Wayflyer, you went with Wayflyer. What would be some advice that you might offer somebody like that?
Well, there's a few advantages of Wayflyer. I actually use other funding companies prior to Wayflyer. I actually got introduced to Wayflyer by the company I acquired, who were telling me how great they were. And then I didn't realize they had existed. Now, the great thing about Wayflyer is you get the cash, right? And cash is king. And so that's great. You don't have to give them equity in your business. So you own the company. You're not really loaning the money. You're just getting a little bit of an advance for the money earlier, so you can grow your business up front and then pay them back with the money you generate from what you've grown. So in my case, I don't use Wayflyer's money to pay my everyday bills. I use the Wayflyer money to specifically buy, for example, say $50,000 worth of Sands drinks manufacturing up front. That's 3 months worth of product, and then I just pay them back as I sell the product. But if I didn't have that funding, then I wouldn't have been able to make that product, which means that I would have to continually just sell other product, which people could buy in other stores as well, and it doesn't have a point of difference. So for anybody that thinks they need funding for their business to grow, the answer is yes, you do these days, because you can't generate huge amounts of return on social anymore. But you don't need to give away equity in your business. There's a few other things about that equity thing. You have to answer to people, right? Now, having sold my company, 100% of it, and then having to work for a publicly listed business who bought it, you have to do reports.
Yeah.
And you've got to attend meetings and you've got to justify everything. Now, for me, if I have a bad sales day, I've got no one to answer to but myself. I might cry. Okay, I might cry and whatever, I have a temper tantrum because I had a bad day in sales, but I'm only answering to myself. I'm not having to spend a week putting together a report to some investors to tell them why the sales were down. In fact, that time that you spend having to answer to people who are lent you money could be better spent fixing up your marketing and getting the sales back up. And so that's probably where the biggest reason to go to someone like a Wayflyer, and I don't think there's anyone else that do the actual cash. So the cash is good because you want to be able to control it, where you spend it. The other thing is banks. Banks don't give you anything. I got a bank. I do have a bank loan with my bank, which is Westpac, and I love Westpac, and I do all my business through there, and they're great. And I've done some media stuff for them as well. But at the end of the day, right, they didn't give me any money without me giving them the exact amount of money that I borrowed in collateral, and they hold that. So they don't give me 1 cent other than a credit card beyond the collateral. So, I mean, banks.
Well, they don't get e-commerce, do they? And what I know, the big banks fundamentally don't understand it. But what I know about Wayflyer is they're founded by e-commerce people. They're not founded by bankers. They're founded by e-commerce people, and that for me shines through.
Do you know the other thing about Wayflyer that is amazing? Awesome. I'm totally not getting paid to say this, but I'm actually not. I didn't realize, I know they told me when I signed up, but I didn't care at the time. I just didn't care. I just wanted the money. But they told me, so what they do, and I wasn't happy about it at the time, but anyway, what they do is they link your Shopify to all, and they link it to all the apps like Google Analytics, Facebook, everything that you do. And at the time, I was a bit annoyed. I was like, that's a bit invasive. But I went into the dashboard the other day because I was curious how much money I owed them, and like how much more I had left and when I can get some more. And this is all this reporting live on my business and how it's done. And I was really happy because I was like up month on month, like year on year. I could see, I was a little bit down as I was last time with COVID. But it was all this live data, and it showed me my ROIs on my Google, and I thought it was super cool. So you've got like this dashboard where you've got everything for free, because that normally would cost a lot of money to buy subscriptions to that. Yeah. So I thought that was actually a really cool thing. And when you Paul, you and I probably don't look at dashboards, right? Because it's all up here. But when you're starting out on a business, you do want to look at the metrics, right?
Yeah. Yeah. You know what? There's a few founders that I've spoken to who have said that. They're like, oh, and they've got this dashboard and the analytics are actually useful. It's like,
they're actually useful.
Yeah. Which is pretty cool. And that's another indication that they just get e-commerce. And I love the idea that, Irene, you're not short of a buck, but it's also not about sinking all of your money into your business. It's absolutely fine to use finance in a clever way to grow your business, and that's what you've done.
Use someone else's money, right, to grow it.
Yeah, I love it. I think that's really good advice. I hope that people listen, particularly to your warnings there about, or cautions there about private equity as well, because yes, you might be getting some cash, but you're also often getting a boss that comes along with that, and a change to that lifestyle that you might have grown accustomed to. And
you know what? People think they can run, this is the thing, right? People think they can run their business better than you, right? And that's the thing that I find really interesting. How is it possible? I don't care how much experience you have or what private equity firm you are, but I'd like to know private equity firm staff are usually accountants and whatever. I'd like to understand how they think they can run a business that they don't know anything about better than the founder who created it from nothing.
Well, sometimes having done a few of these deals as well, sometimes I'm not always convinced that they really care about the performance of the brand and the business. And there's a lot of manipulation of share prices and things like that working towards IPOs. And it's a different world. And I like to keep things simple and bootstrap and back yourself and never forget why you started that business. And I think you're a great example of that. Do you ever see it going overseas? What was interesting for me is the non-alcoholic spirits consumption in Europe is astronomical and growing. Do you ever see it going overseas, or is that too hard in this space?
It kind of comes back to the model of, do I want to buy a boat and go traveling, or do I want to slog it out and be stressed out of my eyeballs every day as an entrepreneur, being chased for invoices all day?
So you're going overseas?
I don't want to. I don't want to expand overseas. I actually just want to be in Australia only. I want to. If you're overseas and you want to buy my products, I do ship overseas. But no, I don't really want to open up stores overseas and all of that. I'm like a real homebody, and I just I know my market. I own my market, and I do it better than anybody else. But my market's very niche. It's men and women and also very specifically as well, I won't just stock any drink as well. I actually only stock drinks that are direct replicas of the alcoholic version. So
yeah, right.
Yeah. So I won't just stock a random new cocktail. It has to be a non-alcoholic G&T or a non-alcoholic spritz or whatever. So very specific. Sans Drinks is about where you go when you simply want to take a break from you, and you're an Australian male or female, and you want to take a break from your favorite alcoholic drink, but you don't want to miss out on the taste and the routine and all of the things that come with it. You simply want to have the same drink without the alcohol.
And Irene, I just wanted to, you touched earlier, going back to the e-commerce side of things a little bit, you touched earlier on the fact that it's not a vending machine anymore in paid media, and that's a little bit harder. What are some of the other challenges that you've faced in being an extremely early adopter in non-alcoholic spirits and growing that to a good sized business? Is there an attitudinal thing in the Australian culture towards non-alc? Are you finding it changing? Has that not been a problem at all? Or what are some of those problems that you found in this venture?
I found a couple of really problematic issues, actually. The first issue is that, like anything that comes to market, every man and their dog is trying to get a slice of the pie. And so what we've seen is a lot of wine brands enter the market, like people who make alcohol frantically trying to zip the alcohol out as quick as possible and put it in a bottle. And what's happening is it's very sweet and it doesn't taste great. They haven't made any effort to make it amazing. In fact, they're doing it as cheap as possible because they need to sell it through those other stores. And the alcohol category has a legacy of offering, cheap product at low margin, right? And, we'll beat your everyday price and all. It just got this legacy about the way and the margins on alcohol are horrendous, right? Come from beauty where margins are 50% minimum, right?
Yeah.
And then so what's happened is these non-alcoholic brands have launched these non-alcoholic wines and they're offering the same margins as if it was alcohol, right?
Yeah.
And so I find that crazy. And so for me, I come from the beauty industry where you offer retailers a proper margin of 50%. You buy it for $1, you sell it for $2, right? It's just maths, right?
Yeah.
I come from that industry, and I also come from the health space where, you launch products that are meaningful for people and they've got, a story behind them and they're helping people on their health journey. And that's where I've come to with this whole category. But then I'm dealing with people like major wine brands that are used to dealing with these bottle shops that I just have a completely different attitude. And so I find that really interesting. But I hope that my very different attitude and way that I come to this industry, which is not the alcohol industry and it's not the wine industry, it's the opposite, right? I mean, this is the health industry that we are talking about here. This is health drinks. And I'm hoping that brings a refreshing disruption to it. And I love that word. And that is what I love doing, is disrupting. And, I know that I'm ruffling feathers. I know not everyone loves me, but I don't care about them because all I care about are my customers and they love me. They're getting a great deal. They're getting a great product and they can rely on me and they always know where the order is. So again, it comes back to just not caring about the trade. Focus on the customer.
I love that. And for those listening, Sam's Drinks, what's your favourite drink on the side or in the store at the moment? What are you enjoying?
Oh, there's a brand. This is the Next Destination. So I had a wine cellar full of Barossa Valley Shiraz, and that's been really hard actually to replace. And so I've got a beautiful 2008 Barossa Valley Shiraz that I'm drinking at the moment from Next Destination brand, and it's just pretty much the only thing that's been able to replace it, which is great. So that's my favorite, as I love a big red. And then any of my gins are great. Four Pillars do a great, they do the Bloody Shiraz gin, and I love the alcoholic Bloody Shiraz gin, and now there's a non-alcoholic one. So I would say the Four Pillars Bloody Shiraz gin is my favorite spirit. And then again, you can tell I love Shiraz, and then the Next Destination Shiraz is my favorite wine.
Well, I've got that one open now because I love a Shiraz. So the Next Destination 2018 Barossa Valley Shiraz. I'll give it a go and I'll report back. And the other fun one, Irene, that I like to ask the guests on the podcast, you're a Shopify merchant. Do you have a favorite app? And an app could be just an integration, a Klaviyo, or whatever.
Yes.
Okay.
I do. I love Okendo.
Hey.
Okendo is awesome, and I actually use it with my Klaviyo, my email marketing software, and I love them because they talk to each other. But the great thing about Okendo is that when I acquired my other business, I synced the reviews up. So no matter which website you're on, you can now see 8,000 reviews. Some are really bad, and that's okay. You need to have light with shade. But you can read what 8,000 people or whatever think about these products across both platforms. And so that's my favorite app.
Yeah, Kendo's in my book's top 10 as well. Love those guys as well as a company. Great people. Irene, that's about it for our time today. And I've really enjoyed this. You're a serial entrepreneur. You're tackling spaces that other people haven't or don't want to, and you're making it work incredibly well. Irene, I just wanted to say a big thanks for joining us on the Wayflyer Founder Series, and I'm looking forward to trying that next destination, Barossa Valley Shiraz. Thanks for joining us, Irene.
Thank you, Paul.